What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Crushing Small Stakes PLO. We're going to be diving into some PLO 100 action here and talking through hands as we play them and breaking down the decision-making process. We have 4 tables running right now, and haven't been playing too much in this session yet. But we will build up some reads as we go. There are definitely some recreational players and some regs at the tables. Here in the limp pot, we take it down with the big 2 pair. No real reason to kind of bet against someone that's this passive. You will often get to check down very marginal hands that actually have showdown against these types of players. And folding marginal pairs, suited ace type hands out of the small blind. Really don't want to be cold calling too much out of the small blind. Especially at these quite high reg structures, you're just going to be out of position, usually in a multi-way pot, and the edge that you're going to be able to generate with that is not usually going to be able to overcome the rake that you're going to pay in each pot. So mainly try and play a 3-bet or fold strategy from the small blind. And if it's not good to 3-bet, it usually means that you should be folding it. And make sure you do subscribe, guys. We will be putting out some more content over the next week. Been kind of sick this last week, so the videos have been a little further between than I would have liked. But also check out PLOpokercoaching.com. We have a bunch of articles going over everything really in PLO in all aspects of the game, and you can also get a free 30-minute coaching session. If you reach out to us, we will be happy to set that up for you, evaluate your game, and strategize a plan how we would be able to go ahead and improve that. King, Queen, Jack, Jack would likely be good enough to cold call with these players behind. You have to be careful when these guys are short because they can come over the top quite light. It really just depends if they're a recreational or if they're more of a reg playing short stack. In that case, they will know that and they will be able to 3-bet and squeeze lighter. But usually when you see these types of players, they are just playing their standard strategy and not doing anything special on the short stack side, so you can still cold call hands like this and try and get them into a pot, especially when you're in position. It is a Saturday night, so we do see some pretty good players at the table, a couple of 60 AEV VIP type players, and you know, once you start getting to PLO 100 bit, but then definitely PLO 200, you want to make sure that you're playing at the optimal times, times like a Saturday night, because the games just get tougher and you will face more regs, and if you are not sure whether or not the game is actually beatable, check out one of our articles about your edge and effective reg and what a table needs to actually look like in order to be profitable. You know, you're gonna have to have, depending on the reg structure, a big enough loser at the table to cover that. So we do flop the queen high flush here. 4-way, I am going to check it. And then start betting on the turn. Half pot size bet. This guy seems to be quite passive, but bets a lot on the turn. I'm just going to call. No real reason to raise. We want to keep his bluffs in. And he could be betting a lower flush here. Obviously not a great river. And then he bets quite large. Snap bets large, in fact. And against a player like this, like his turn bang range into 4 people should be mostly flushes. Like he shouldn't be betting sets in 2 pairs. Without a pair blocker, it is pretty marginal to call here. But the snap bet, it just doesn't make too much sense. I'd really love to have a pair blocker, but I kind of do want to call here and see what this guy is about. And he does have Jack 9, so that's definitely something to note down, that he is betting as light as Jack 9 on the turn, and probably against this type of player that we could just go ahead and fold there. I mean, likely this player is not finding really many bluffs. So probably kind of a punt to call there. But we do have a pretty good scene here of someone that's playing pretty much every hand, and we do just want to try and build up a bit of a stack. Here in a 5-way pot, very marginal draws. I mean, we can probably all of that. This guy's quite tight. I would potentially 3-bet this hand. Without aggressive players behind, I'm more inclined to just call. I would usually 3-bet here, but this guy is playing 10% VPIP, so there's going to be a very, very strong range that we run into a good portion of the time. And here without a spade, obviously we're not going to have that many great runouts. But with the back-top flush draw, I think we have enough playability to check back. And he is going to be leading a lot of flush draws on this board. Out of position on an ASI board, he is going to have a higher bang frequency, which therefore means he gets to lead a lot more of his flushes. So by checking, he does take some of those flushes out of his range. We're obviously not folding anywhere. But the question is, what do we do on a blank river? And I think we're just going to obviously check behind here. And he gets there. And here we river the Jack High flush. Again, no real reason to bet. We will certainly run into higher flushes that check back the turn on the pairing card, especially 5-way. Hopefully we just check down. And top right, these are pretty weak queens, but again, want to build a pot with this guy who's limping. He's actually raising a majority of his range as well, so the fact that when he limps, his range is extremely weak here. Unless he goes for a limp re-raise, which then it's one hand only. And we're gonna raise up the double suited rundown here on the bottom right. I usually stab these boards quite aggressively, but being out of position to 2, a dynamic board, and it's just a board that people are gonna hit pretty hard with a limp calling range. So yeah, I think we're just gonna check and give up on this one. And then the pot size bet we're definitely folding. Here we flop a pair and an open ender and backdoor flush draw. And against this stack size, I am just going to check jam. And we get it in pretty well against the overpair and manage to hit. Make sure you're making that adjustment when you're playing against smaller stack sizes. You want to be check raising at a much higher frequency. From like a GTO perspective, the check raising range overall jumps up by 30 to 50%. So you are going to check raise a lot more aggressively, just because obviously the stack off threshold to get the money in drops significantly, and you'll also find, especially that when people make stabs, they stab like that when they stab and they bet pot, which they shouldn't really be doing at that stack size. So you can really punish their over c-bang with a large size by just check raising pretty relentlessly. In situations like that, I'd keep it closer to value, but when you have pretty good blockers, you can go ahead and check raise against smaller sizes, but usually when you have a recreational player that leads out pot, they're not going to be pot folding, so just definitely keep that in mind. And I am going to open to full pot. This guy doesn't seem to be 3-betting, quite a passive player. And here we do have the ace of spades, but this is a situation where we don't really want to waste our ace of spades blocker. If we bet and get raised here, obviously we can't call. But on a straight board like this, there are going to be plenty of times that we are going to check back nut flush draws, and then we can use it on a turn like this. Here with the jacks, I am actually just going to call. And not the greatest turn. Beat now by straight draws and obviously kings too. The question is, I don't think that he's going to fold a flush, so the value of our blocker here is pretty limited in my opinion. I think that we can just fold this hand, to be honest. Obviously not folding the jacks, no real need to raise. He bet pretty large on the turn. We do have a heart blocker. He should slow down here with the flush completing. So I would expect to see some checkbacks with a straight. We don't have any straight blockers. I don't think he's going to bet a straight for value. And just rivers a flush, which is fun. We're going to bet here with a pair blocker and straight blocker. And with 2 hearts, I mean, I think we could actually... It's pretty thin, but I think we can value bet here. It's likely that he has a queen. Could have a boat. And be slow playing. But he does have a boat. A little bit thin on the value bet, but I think against a player with an 86% range, that we can definitely get away with it. We will be defending on the bottom right. We have some nerdness in order to play a 4-way pot and some pretty good odds. And we'll just be check folding the flop. Question is, do we want to stab now? Nobody is really checking back straight here. Do have some outs. People play pretty straightforward in these pots. Basically, mainly only me and the small blind here should have strats. So I think we can actually take a stab at this and follow through on rivers, unblocking a lot of pairs, and we do take it down. I will be folding here to raise, but I will open against this guy who is reasonably tight. Just a pretty marginal hand to open out the small blind, but this guy is VPIPing 16%, which is very low. And without a nut suit here, I am just going to fold, so we're going to be often dominated in multi-way pots. And then raising up the double pairs on the top right, and we'll be calling a 3-bet, especially against this aggro guy. This is definitely a hand that I will want to stab. I mean, we do block a 6, having 4, 4, 5, 5 in our hand. It's deceptive if we turn a 4 or a 5, and also, obviously, we have the polarity advantage with all of the aces here, so we can barrel some turns. I am actually going to 3-bet this hand here. He is a little short. And then to the donk on the turn, we're just going to be folding. And then bottom left, this is just going to be a range c-bet for a third here. We do very well. There should be limited 6s in his range. Unfortunately, not blocking a heart. We are going to struggle with fold equity on this flop, but we do get it through. And on this turn card, this guy is quite passive. doesn't tend to check fold that often. We do have some equity. We do want to go ahead and bet here. We do have a spade, we do have a wrap. And we take it down. It's a little loose without the nut suit here. Probably should just be a fold, to be honest. Especially with this guy in the button. A hand like this, when we raise it, a lot of the EV that is contained in the hand is related to the EV of taking down the blinds, and when you have an 88% VFib guy in the button, you're obviously basically never taking down the blinds. And in these pots, I am going to stab pretty much most of my range here. If you look at the Mad Dare analysis, on monotone boards, people are check folding or folding generally to c-bets around 50% of the time, which doesn't sound that high, but then when you think that you're usually betting a third of the pot, that is actually an extremely high percentage. But the flip side to that is when you do get called, the ranges on the turn are going to be a lot stronger than they should be. And so you have to give up in a lot of spots. And here, you know, we do actually have some very good equity against his sets. So I think we can check and then bluff some rivers if we miss. And this is not going to be a river that I am going to bluff at. We don't block any board pairs. And he does have the second nut flush. And we flop a boat over here on the bottom right. This is a limped pot. We block the board pretty hard. Not that many draws out there. Now that the club draw comes in and stretch on the turn, I am going to bet now. A little more chance of getting some action. And folding here on the bottom left. I am just going to call here on the button. Potentially could 3-bet on the lower end with the wheel cards, but mainly the main reason for calling is this guy in the big blind that we want to also have along in the pot. And we don't want to force him out. Interesting. This would actually be kind of a interesting spot. Because this guy is obviously weak. This guy is 3-betting a very wide range. This is actually a pretty good spot to back raise here. We're probably not going to fold out this guy too often, but his range is potentially quite weak, and we're not destroyed against aces. And this guy will often fold, or should fold. But it looks like we might be getting it in against kings. And we do scoop it. The question is, do we want to squeeze here? This guy is relatively tight under the gun. We have a good hand to just call. And we're obviously calling the 3-bet on the bottom right. And we will be calling the flop with 2 backdoor flush draws and some pretty good, well, a gut shot and blockers in a pair. Question is, do we want to bet at this point? Like, I don't expect to get raised too much. We could get, yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty good board to actually stab at. And we do take it down. We just block like heavily as continuing range, right? Like, he's gonna have aces with gut shots, which might be going for a check raise. Like, but it would, the only times we're really gonna get check raise there are by sets or, like, as I said, aces with gut shots and backed off flush draws, and we heavily block the aces and backed off flush draws. Straight draws part of his range there, so we're really kind of worried about getting check raised by sets, which shouldn't really be too much in his range there. So a good reason to go ahead with stab, given that we can barrel multiple turns and are likely not going to get raised off our equity on the flop. Double suited ace, low rundown on the bottom left, potentially with some short stacks in the pot. Like, this guy's cold calling range here should be like a 1%, and pretty sure he's not calling 1% of hands. On this board, when do we want to bet trips here? I mean, we block 8, 9. We're very short, so we can slow play this. We do have a backdoor flush draw too. I think that we want to go ahead and check. Often this is just going to get checked back. The ace is a very good card for us, and I don't think that we really want to slow play much on the ace. I'm going to bet small with a half pot size bet. Well, a little more just so we can get the money in on the river. Oh, I don't think we can avoid the family pot here, although this is just such a bad hand to play multi-way. Basically, we're looking for a 9 high flop. You're just so often gonna flop like a straight draw and a flush draw, and you end up getting it in, and you're just dominated by someone has your flush draw beat, someone has a better wrap. So usually multi-way, I just kind of get rid of these hands. We will check call top right. He snap checks back the flop. So I think we just want to check call the turn. Not ideal without a diamond, but again, in position. I mean, C-bet in position is actually pretty low, so he might have some flush draws in his range, but we can't fold for a half pot size bet. And see what the bet sizing is on the river. Yeah. Unfortunately, not going to be able to call. And here I really want to call his hand. Unfortunately, this guy is not raising a majority of his hands, so I am actually going to fold. Sometimes when you see these like passive fish players, like you do want to look at like their pre-flop raise range, just because when they are not actually raising that much and they're limping a lot and playing very passively, they often do have stronger ranges. Not in this case, obviously, he folded, but just something to look out for. I mean, this guy's obviously quite reggish, and is going to isolate this guy a bit wider, so we can be somewhat looser in that situation generally, but when this guy's still left to act, who doesn't raise as much in late position, you know, it's not the best situation. And I think that is going to wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I wish you guys the best of luck out there at the tables, and we will see you soon as we put out some more content over the next week. Thanks a lot, everyone.